Welcome to Money Market, a Bank of Tampa podcast. We highlight the businesses, expert business advice, local economy, and points of interest in the Tampa Bay market. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And please share this episode with a friend or colleague. I am Owen LaFave, the host of the podcast and the Pinellas County market president for the Bank of Tampa, Tampa Bay's oldest and largest community bank. We have a very special guest today. We're joined by Oscar Horton, the CEO of Sun State International, and most recently voted the most admired CEO, or at least a candidate for it. Correct? Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Owen.
So I remember you had given, you were on stage with actually the Bank of Tampa's chairman, and of course, you're one of our board members as well. But the moderator had asked or had said you were successful, and you said, well, you didn't really know if you were. Yeah. But to be voted in as the most admired CEO, I think you made it, Oscar.
Oh, no. I think it's a work in progress for sure.
So for our listeners, what is Sun State International Trucks?
We sell commercial trucks, big trucks. We also sell big trailers that go behind those trucks. We sell school buses. Okay. We have the contract for the state of Florida, for all 67 counties, to sell school buses. And then we sell specialized equipment. The term they use is a yard dog, but what that means is where you see a lot of trailers on the yard, they won't use a truck to move those trailers around. There is a specialized piece of equipment that they do.
Interesting. So it's a smaller piece of equipment that's got some mobility? Because I think of a yard dog, and I'm thinking, okay, there's a dog guarding.
Yeah. No. This is just a single piece of equipment that's specifically designed to just move trailers around in small spaces.
Okay.
Then on top of that, we have a parts and service business that goes along with repairing all of those products that we just sold.
So, from a percentage standpoint, what is the greater percentage from either the sales or the parts and service?
Well, obviously the sales, but the sale of a new truck, I relate it to the razor blade business. We sell the truck so we can work on it. Right. So it's by far your largest revenue generator, but it's not your largest profit margin business.
Got it. So the goal is to develop that relationship and keep them coming back for service and parts. And
that's right.
Okay.
But supplement it with not just the ones that we sell. We go out into the marketplace and talk to customers that don't own an international truck and repair their trucks.
Okay.
And we now have a mobile service business where we will actually come to your facility with our specialized equipment and work on your trucks on your property.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Well, that's convenient.
Sure.
And because you're not selling your own trucks, right? You're being provided. You're buying trucks, then turn around and
yeah. If you think of it as like the car business, it's a franchise.
Yeah. Okay.
So we buy our new trucks from International. We buy our trailers from Hyundai. You think of Hyundai as a cars, but they're the world's largest trailer manufacturer.
I've heard you say that before, and I was surprised. I didn't know.
Yeah, yep. And so they gave us a contract to represent them in the state of Florida. So.
Okay. So what is the state of the trucking industry? I think of it and think, okay, the economy's been fairly strong and resilient. The continued growth of shopping online, which is requiring distribution and logistics and trucks to move all those products around. But then I also hear there's excess capacity in the industry. So where are we at exactly?
Well, we went through a rough spot in the trucking industry when we had COVID. Just simply could not get the product. It was built around chips. We couldn't get enough glass to make the mirrors or the different things that go into the product. So
the chips were the big thing, right? Because you had the truck, but you didn't have the chip to make the truck.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So we had, but you didn't really want to go ahead and manufacture a truck and leave the chip off and then have to go back and re-tear the truck down to put the chip in. So there was a lot of trucks in fields that were half-mass, so to speak. So what happened during that period of time, everyone kind of got behind. They couldn't get new trucks. People had trucks on order for 2 or 3 years. So at this point in time, a lot of those trucks are just starting to hatch, right? So the market is pretty good. We're delivering product that we sold a year or 2 years ago.
Okay.
And we still got about another years or so of that to catch up with. So that in itself makes the market pretty good for us. Mm-hmm. Several prices increases along the way, but the customer understood it's business to business, so they absorbed that. But even larger than that, the trucking business is a lot more of a necessity than people give it credit for. If all of the truckers got together and says, we're not going to deliver anything, within 2 days, we'd be out of fuel.
That's
you don't
amazing.
think about
well,
it.
that happened in Canada, right? There was a strike.
It has.
Yeah.
And there's been strikes here. But, I mean, if everyone joined together, in 2 days, we would be out of fuel. In 2 days, all of the cars manufacturers would shut down because they use something called just-in-time inventory. They load a truck tonight in California, and that truck is going to be delivered with parts in Florida in the next couple of days. If it doesn't show up, that assembly line will never be fed. If trucks didn't show up, you wouldn't have any groceries at the grocery stores. So you could shut down the whole country if all of the truckers decided to do it. 3 weeks, you'd be dead stop. So that's what people don't recognize about the trucking industry. So that said, it's always pretty good.
That's a scary thought, but
Yeah.
I'm glad we've got our truckers out there. And
Yeah.
so I guess at this stage, I mean, we're 4 years removed from COVID, and maybe 2 to 3 years, depending on like when your time frame is. I mean, are supply chains normal, or I mean, are you able to get the inventory that you need at this point?
The answer is no.
No, still not.
But it's still nowhere near where it was.
Okay.
It got to the point where we would sell a truck today, and most of my inventory, we order it. No one drive by my dealerships and said, I like that red truck there. How much is it? So therefore, we were selling trucks, and it was taking 18 months or so to get them. Today, we can get that same truck in 6 months or so. But when the flow is really good, it's like 90 days or so from the time we order a truck to the time they build it and drop it off in Tampa, Florida.
Wow. Okay. So still not back, which I'm sure still is creating some challenges. And
Sure.
What about major trends in shipping? I mean, is there a move? Are you seeing a demand for more electric vehicles or hydrogen and natural gas, driverless vehicles? I mean, what are you seeing in the trucking industry?
All of those things are in play. It's always an effort to try to get to be as green as possible. What people don't understand is how far the truck emissions that come from the old days when you used to didn't want a truck if it didn't emit smoke out of the smokestack. That was part of the fun.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah.
That same truck today, you could put a handkerchief over that smokestack and it would never stain it. But with government regulations say you got to get even better, so hence the electric vehicle. Mm-hmm. Now, the electric vehicle is a real challenge in the truck business, meaning that we load a truck in Auburndale, Florida with juice, and it takes it all the way to California. That tank is sealed, and by the time it gets to that Tropicana plant in California, it has to be within that date, so they give you the juice back.
Yep.
So a truck that's got 2 100-gallon tanks, you pull into a service station a day, you put a hose in each side, you go inside and get you a bite to eat and have a smoke, use the restroom, come back, and you load it, you're ready to go. That same truck, if it was down to 0 in battery power, you better get a room to stay tonight to get it charged up.
Right.
So the infrastructure is just not there to support that on the long-haul truck. That's much farther out than the truck that you see running around town. Where the real advantage is in school buses, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Right? They run about 10 miles out in the morning, you charge them up, they come back, and they run 10 miles out in the afternoon, and that's to run. The issue with school buses is really around the economics of it, the price. An electric bus is about 4 times the price of a standard 72-passenger bus.
4 times. Wow.
Standard 72-passenger bus is about $150,000. An electric bus is about $400,000.
So, well, and I guess you don't have the gas needs and costs associated with fuel, and probably some less maintenance. But
Sure.
I mean, how does the economics work out between the two of those over the long term?
Well, and we've sold a number of electric buses. A lot of the support comes from the state, though, at this time.
Subsidies?
Subsidies. So I say a lot of these buses we're selling now, they're show ponies. Okay? They're not going to, until we can get to mass production and you can get that price down, that's not feasible for schools to buy a ton of these here. And, in our market, we'll sell 400-plus school buses a year. So you can see how much money that would be for a school to come up with. So
interesting. I know I just saw recently that PSTA, which is the Pinellas County Transit Authority, they had it just got a grant. I want to say either for 17 or 27, I forget. It was a 7 at the end of that for electric buses.
Sure.
But we're excited about the potential long-term savings. But I've never really sat down and analyzed the math on it. But So subsidies are needed to really kind of make that work at least where we're at in terms of technology right now.
That's exactly right. And within our company, we have people that assist the school districts in grant writing so that we can be assured that we got our hands in the pot here. So,
You're a smart businessman, I know. So one of the things I've always admired when I hear you talk is just the value of the relationship, and so I mean that ties in to kind of what we do at Bank of Tampa. But so, how does Sun State approach relationship? How do you ensure customer satisfaction and loyalty? What's your philosophy there?
well, two things. When we came to Tampa in 2001, we bought the one store here in Tampa, and the customer relationships were not very good.
Okay.
But not only that, the employee morale was not very good. The culture was not very good. So we knew on day one.
Around.
Yeah. When I say we, there's a young lady that came with me as my CFO, and we worked together at Navistar.
Okay.
Wouldn't be where we are now without her assistant here to get us up and running. So we knew, though, that the trucks are pretty similar, meaning you can go next door to another dealer and get a truck, and it's got tires on it and windshields, steering wheels.
Peterbilt or Mack.
Mack, Freightliner, that. So just the brand itself wasn't going to be the winner. But we have such a strong relationship with customers that we can sort of get under the customer's hood. And what I mean, understand their income statement, understand their balance sheet, understand their mission, understand are they running from Tampa to Orlando, are they running from Tampa to New York City, and we can actually do electronic modeling of a truck.
Okay.
Get the right specs of the truck, tell you what roads you're going to go, how much you're going to climb hills, how much you're going to go downhill, and do all of that math to determine fuel economy, efficiency. None of that was here when we got here. So we knew that if we could get in a customer's room, not talk about price, but let's talk about what we can do together as a team, that's how we could grow the business. And it was that piece of being able to get under the customer's hood. The next piece we had to do was bring all of our employees up to speed as to what it takes to run a business.
Sure.
We teach all of our employees financial literacy. And I don't mean just how to fill out a check. We teach them about an income statement, about the balance sheet, about cash flow, about expenses, because I knew from my prior experience at International that if you tell an employee you bought a business today that was doing X, and now you're doing 10 times X, they're going to say, well, my income didn't go up that fast.
I should be making 10 times X, right?
So we knew we had to take that confusion out of the system. So over time, all of these elements I'm talking about just became one pretty dynamic force with the customer. And that's been our secret sauce here is getting in that customer, taking care of each other. If a service writer goes into a customer today and a parts person goes in tomorrow, we all speak the same language. Nobody throw each other under the bus. And that's how we get real lifetime feedback from our customers in terms of how we're servicing them, not by sending out a survey and somebody say, well, I'll wait and fill it out tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes.
So how do you adapt? So you get that feedback. What is the process internally for then putting some of that feedback in action?
We have a process, we call it a Triforce system, where our salespeople in parts, our salespeople in service, our salespeople in trucks, twice a month, all of the employees that interface with the customer get in this room. Okay. And if you're in the parts sales group, you're not to tell me how well you're doing. You're to tell me what the customer said about service. Likewise,
okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then out of those, we put together a plan to go back out to the customer and heal his wounds.
Right.
And it's just a constant loop of that kind of feedback here. Because the customer that we sell the truck to may never drive the truck. So there's no point in me sending you a survey. You own the company. You got 500 trucks. What are you going to tell me? You're just going to go out there to the shop and ask the guy that's got a beef with us yesterday because something happened, and then that's the survey. So we knew we needed lifetime information to get out there and get it done.
So what is the key to creating a culture that allows people to talk freely and provide? Because no one wants to hear what, Oscar, I don't want you to tell me when I'm doing wrong, and vice versa. So
the key is, number one is time. Number two is consistency. Number three is actually letting people understand the business that we're in. I learned that when I worked at International. I had a stint at International Harvester as a chief labor negotiator for all of North America, and we had some plants in Mexico. And I was told at one point that, Oscar, we're going to make you the head of labor. International Harvester has been around 100 years, and we've negotiated ourselves into a position where the fully loaded labor cost is $55 an hour. Competition's at 27. He said, now, Oscar, I want you to get it down to $30 an hour because I think 27 would be gouging the workers. I said, now let me be sure I understand what you just told me. It took 100 years to get here, and you think in the next 18 to 24 months we can get it down to 30. He said, that's the reason I'm putting you in the job. You grasp complex things quickly. It was in that job that I began to appreciate that unless we really do get all of the employees on the same team, we will never have the opportunity to negotiate a fair contract. Because I went to one of our assembly plants, and there was about 8,000 people worked at this plant, but they had a committee. And I go in on Sunday afternoon thinking, I'll get me 10 or 12 charts here and explain to them we got this gap and we'll be good to go. And I walk into Union Hall, and the first thing I notice is that they're having a good time. And a lot of things going on. I'm saying to myself, I don't know if I got enough slides to tell this story, but I'll tell it anyway. So I get up on stage and I put this chart up, and I'm about 3 slides in. And one of the workers' hand go up, and he says, Oscar, that's your name, right? I said, yeah. He said, the International Union think a lot of you. They said you was pretty smart. He said, but I'm beginning to think you don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, how did you...
We're only 3 slides in at this point, huh?
I said, how did you come to that conclusion 3 slides in? He said, you up there talking about people making $55 an hour. There's nobody here making $55 an hour. Highest paid guy we got is a skilled trades worker. He's at $27 an hour. You say you need 30, give him 3 and we'll be on the move. I said, no, that's not going to happen. So the union chairman said, you got many more slides like that, Oscar? I said, yeah, I got another 2 or 3. He said, well, come on off the stage. He said, you don't have anything to sell us here. That's when it dawned on me, they had no concern about the cost of benefits. They had no concern about the cost of a pension. They had no concern about FICA and SUTA. They didn't care about that. Yeah. They really didn't. And I said, listen, if I ever own my own business, that's where we started. So I would come to Tampa, and the first thing I tried was I talked to one of the employees. More than one. It was about 10 of them I got in the room. I said, if we sell one of those big trucks out there for $100,000, how much gross margin do you think we made? Well, not their fault, but they didn't understand what gross margin meant. But somebody would say 90,000, and somebody would say 70, and somebody would say, y'all don't know what you're talking about. It's more like 50. I said, well, that's the reason we're holding this class. Because if we get 10% gross margin on one of those new trucks, we cut loose pigeons and set off balloon and just have a celebration. So I said, we got a place to start. Party for everybody. So to go back to answer your question, it's those little bit of things and just being consistent in what you do and how you do it and wake up every day. And then every now and then, we have a coin that all of our employees get, right? Here, I got one. I happen to bring one with me. But every employee in the company gets this coin.
So it's like a poker chip.
Like a poker chip. But on the back of the poker chip, it talks about things like respect and trust and ethics and honesty. And we tell every employee when they're being orientated to the company is that we've got a human resources manual out there, and it might be 300 pages. But if you want to get fired, you violate one of these on the back of the coin.
No, that's, yeah.
Now,
simple, clever.
Yeah, it is. But when it came to life, when we had to have a public execution over one of these items they violated, and we fired a guy.
Okay.
And when you violate one of the things on the back of the coin, you don't go to the Human Resources Department and get a 3-step discipline process, and 2 years later you're still there trying to work through your discipline. No. That's your last day. But we have to be consistent about it. So we've fired senior managers over this coin, and we've hired people that just started 6 months ago. But it's no one thing. All of our employees are always watching every day. When are they going to violate all of these things that they've been talking about for the last 20 years? And it holds us together.
That's fascinating. So those things, I mean, would you describe those as your core vision as well?
Values.
Okay, core values.
It's definitely our core values. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And did that develop over time?
Over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, how would you define your core values, your vision? I mean, so if I was going to ask an employee, tell us about Sun State, what would they say?
I think the first thing they would tell you is that the company is here to stay. I've told them all that I have zero interest in selling the company. Right? That's our North Star. We're going to have this as more than a one-generation business. The second one thing is that we're going to do the right thing. We're going to do it with integrity. We don't want any customers, if we've got to give them something under the table to buy a truck. We're going to be consistent of this. We're going to pay you well. We're going to do all of the right things about tuition refund, and we want you to go to school. We want to be a family, but you have to be a family. You can't cheat us out of anything and steal parts from us. Now, once we got that team tight, it's a constant recycling of that because we hired new people. So we have to constantly keep teaching new people.
Right.
The second thing is we promote from within, and I mean that literally. We think if you got the right attitude and you got the right work ethic, we can figure the rest out.
Sure.
You know, we're not sending people to the moon out at Sun State here. We're just selling trucks.
Not yet.
not yet. So when people ask me that question, it almost sounds like I want a 1, 2, 3 formula. This is 20 years worth of stuff that's in process, and 20 years from now, someone will sit here and tell you the same thing. We're still working on it.
Well, you know, that's an important thing. I think it gets lost because culture changes over time, people change over time, the business model is going to change over time. Sure. So, you need to adapt. And there are some things that are just, they're non-negotiable, right? But, sure. Other things do change over time. And speaking of your employees, so when it comes to employee development and training, are you out there trying to find experienced people? Is it easier to just, hire them young and train them up? What's your strategy there?
Well, we've got 2 segments of employees. Our technicians that work on the trucks, that's by far 65% of our workforce.
Can you find those people today?
Well, we raise our own, so to speak.
Okay.
We recruit for technicians just like we Nick Saban at Alabama. Okay. We invite them in, invite their parents into our conference room, tell them the story, give them a tour of the dealership, and we explain to them that if you're interested in coming to work for us and you're just out of high school, we're going to pay your salary. We're going to put you in our apprenticeship and development program. If you apply yourself and you work hard, 3 years from now, you're a Class A technician, you can make north of $100,000 a year.
That's great income.
Great income, right? So they go tell their friends. Now, to tell the friends, don't bring us anybody that's not going to live up to the coin, though maybe both of y'all go get fired. So that's our biggest recruiting process from the technician side. From our management side, we have our own development program for management. Every year, our people go through training on financial literacy. They go through training on negotiation. They go through training on sales skills. They go through how to do performance reviews. So we probably have about 25 people that we've identified that's going to be like the next succession in the company. And they all go through this development program. And because we don't want to go to the street and hire somebody. Now, sometimes we can't avoid it, right? But as a rule, your job and your promotion is going to come from inside the company.
Okay. That's a good rule of thumb. Is that part of what helps keep your employees motivated, or how do you
I think so.
That? Yeah.
I think so. Now, you're always going to have a renegade or two, but yeah, as a rule.
There always is, right?
Yeah, always is. And when you get rid of that one, there'll be a new one. But we understand that process. So.
Okay. What would you say has been some of the most influential things that have evolved your leadership style over the years?
I would tell you that I was very fortunate inside of Navistar or International Harvester. Oh, and I got hired right out of college to be a salesperson out of the Memphis, Tennessee region.
Okay.
Memphis covered Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Kentucky.
Okay.
Mississippi, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Kentucky.
Yeah,
this was in the early 70s. My job was going to be to sell cotton pickers and corn binds.
Okay, all right.
Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Kentucky. I was 5'9", weighed about 130 pounds, had an afro. Cotton pickers were hard to sell, period.
Oh, well, yeah.
So the gentleman that hired me, he says, Oscar, I think you got that it, so you can be okay as a salesman, but I have to tell you something. He said, we haven't had a lot of luck with African Americans on this job. So what's been the problem?
We're in the South, right?
Yeah. He said, well, the turnover rate's been pretty high. I said, well, how high was the turnover rate? He said 100%. I said, wow, man, that's pretty high.
Yeah, it's not good.
I said, how many African Americans have you hired? He said, well, we hired one old boy about 10 years ago, and he didn't work out. This would have been in the 60s. You're selling combines and cotton pickers. All right. I said, well, if you'll give me the job, I'll cut the turnover rate in half. So, and he did. He gave me the job, and he became my biggest mentor.
Okay.
And he was one of the first few people that got me started thinking about put the people first, no matter what you do here. I don't care whether it's a customer or whatever, they've got to walk away thinking you got their best interest at heart. So out of that process, he kept looking for opportunities for me to get promoted. And he came to me one day and says, if you're ever going to be anything when you grow up in international harvestry, you have to build equipment. Real men build stuff. Anybody can sell. But so I got a job for you in Melrose Park, Illinois. There's an engine plant up there, and I want you to go up there and go to work. I said, what am I going to do? He said, you're going to be a crankshaft supervisor. I said, man, that sounds like fun. What's a crankshaft? So he said, don't worry, we'll get you covered. And then I started to work with masses of people in this plant because it was mostly a union-driven plant, and I didn't know anything about crankshaft grinding, right? Didn't know what a crankshaft was, right, so that wasn't going to be my expertise, but it was to manage these people. So then that's when the skill kicked into me is that I don't need to know everything about everything. They just have to have confidence in me that I'm going to take care of them. Right. And it was that throughout my career. Yeah. And when I came to Tampa, it was no doubt that was the philosophy that I was going to bring here, is that my first line of work is to get you guys settled down. You trust me, I trust you, because I'm not going to work on a truck. Right. I'm so far removed from how to build a truck, inspect it out on the computer, I'm not going to be good at that. But we're going to let professionals do professional work. We don't want amateurs doing professional work. So we're going to get everybody in the room, find out your expertise, and then we're going to go from there. And on that's a proven process. I tell anybody. A lot of people don't want to take the time to do it. A lot of people don't want to tell all their employees all of their business about whether they're making money or losing money here or there. That's another level of security you have to have within yourself. But it's a tried and true formula. It works for us.
Well, I think, people are always curious and they want to know more and they want to feel part of that building that trust comes from really truly understand how the business is operating, how they fit in, how they add value to all that. And I think when you disclose all the financials and just kind of share with them, here's the process. It helps them feel valued. It helps them understand their contribution to the company. And I think going back to when you were talking about, you don't have to know how to build a crankshaft. Right. You trust them to do their job. They trust you to provide them with what they need to do the job. Exactly. Then you build on that.
You build on that, and they've watched us double the size of the business 3 times since we've been here. And we have a clear path that we'll double it again by 2027.
Now, is that organic growth? Is that through acquisition?
We've had some acquisition, but most of it has been organically, going out and getting customers back that we didn't have.
Okay.
People come into us like Hyundai and say, we've heard great things about you. Because Hyundai, in all of North America, there's only 23 individuals like myself that's got a Hyundai contract. So they're not looking for the masses.
Trailers.
This is for trailers. So they're not looking for the masses. They just says, we want a handful of people and we're going to all do this together. So therefore, I get to expand my territory and selling trailers outside of Florida.
How do you view the difference between the organic growth and acquisition?
The organic growth comes pretty easy as long as you keep taking care of the customer and watch our customers grow. We kind of grow with our customers. Acquisitions, I'll tell you that we could be much bigger now, but I passed on a few acquisitions because the culture was going to eat ours up. Okay. So we slow and steady. We don't want to be big just to be big. We want to
it's a good philosophy.
Have a good, solid process. We want to have good, strong cash flow. We want to be able to be in the business of taking care of opportunities when they come our way. But size is not my goal in life.
So going back to your original hiring manager, would you consider him a solid? Because there was the solids that help you out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you find the solids?
I would tell you that is somebody. First place, people were always big on talking about you have to find a mentor. International had formal programs where they'd sign you to somebody to be your mentor, and they had never met you, and you hadn't met them. If you had two meetings, that I'm overstating it. That's just not the way it worked.
Yeah.
It was relationships that got built because people had things in common. People respected each other. People wanted to help out. Those are the people that I was talking about, the solid. The gentleman that hired me in Memphis, he had nothing to do with manufacturing. Right? So for him to help me get a job in manufacturing, he was a solid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He was trying to round you out.
He was trying to round me out. I can't tell you the number of different jobs I had inside of International so that they could round me out. And by the time I decided to leave the company, I had become the VP and general manager of a foundry business we owned in North America. And we dabbled in some things in Germany and Brazil. And I wanted to leave the company. I wanted to run my own business. So one of the guys that I had developed a real strong relationship with he was a solid. And he says, Oscar, I have to tell you, we got a lot of money invested in you and a lot of time, and we think you could even go farther. So what are you talking about? I said, I want to leave. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be an international harvester dealer. Dealer? I said, yeah. He said, well, we got two problems. He said, the first problem is these are franchises, so we don't own them. Second problem is you don't have the money to buy one. So that's where you come in. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I want you to put it on the easy pay plan. You finance me, and when I make some money, I'll pay you back. He said, where'd you come up with that idea from? I said, we're always interested in trying new things, so they did.
Wow. Had that been done before?
Yeah, it had been.
It had been. Okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't. You couldn't go anywhere and find the handbook on it. It was. Right. It had done.
Okay.
So, and I knew that, and he did too. So, they started looking for dealerships, and they found something in North Dakota and South Dakota and Maine and New York City and Jersey. I said, I'm not doing any of that, and I got a good job. So then they came to me one day and says they got a store down in Tampa, Florida. I said, you ever been to Tampa? I said, no. He said, well, we got a dealership down there. They sell about $25 to $30 million a year. They lose between $800,000 and $1 million, but the owner looks good doing it. He's got a Jaguar and a Mercedes and a boat. So getting back to the point about solids, without having him as my solid, this wouldn't have ever happened. I wasn't going to be able to raise the capital to go out and buy one. I don't even know if anyone would have ever sold me one, because it's not like you go out and raise your hand and says, I want an international franchise. Mm-hmm. They all given away. You got to go and buy somebody out to get one, and even fewer today, because there's less than 100 international dealers in the country these days. So it's these solids all the way. Now, I never targeted any of these people to be my solid, and I don't think they targeted me to take me into raise. These were just relationships that happened over time. Now, I did show up every day for work, worked hard while I was there, and got good results. So that helped with the solid relationship and everything. But I would tell anyone, yeah, you need a mentor, but it's not as simple as you going to a Wednesday afternoon happy hour and bump into Owen, and then now Owen's going to be my mentor. That's that. I've never seen that.
I've never seen that either.
Okay, but people believe that, though.
They do.
Yeah.
So you think you could just go out and, or people ask, and it's I mean, it's a high compliment, but it is also hard when you don't necessarily have that relationship, that trust built, and sure, I'm always interested in helping someone to have that formal relationship. Where I have found, I'd just like to hear your thoughts on this, is, folks on my team, I ask them, what do they want to do? Like, where do they want to be, whether it's inside here at the bank or it's outside here at the bank, and I will do my best to give them the tools, the training, the education, exposure, introductions to relationships to get to wherever they want to go. But while they're here, you need to give me your all. And it's the folks that they perform high and do a great job and know that they're delivering on what our agreement is, that those are the ones that I strive to push to, whether it's inside or outside. I mean, hate for them to leave, but sometimes that career path isn't always here, and maybe at some point in time they come back.
Sure. There's been more than one individual that worked for me that I encouraged to go get another opportunity because they could do what they wanted to do, and they weren't going to run Sun State.
Right.
So now that we got that established, let me help you grow.
Well, you had that encouragement.
Absolutely, absolutely. I learned another thing along the way in the company is that we all are important, but we can all be replaced. And I spent a stint working in the International Harvester Credit Company. And I had a boss to come in one afternoon, and it's snowing, and I'm in Chicago, and he plopped down at my desk, and he said, Oscar, he says, I'm beginning to like you a lot. He said, you know what you're doing, pretty smart. He said, you ended up over here, and I didn't have anything to do with it. He said, somebody else in the company called and said,
I got stuck with Oscar.
Yeah, you're coming over. He said, well, here's the thing I want to tell you. He says, if you fell dead at that desk right now, he said, it's Thursday afternoon, and it's snowing, so we're not going to do anything the rest of this week. But come Monday, we're going to have somebody else in that seat.
Thanks.
You just keep that in mind. As long as you grow up and work, there's nothing special about you. Somebody else will come in behind you and you replace you. Now, so I take that even from a positive standpoint. If you want to go and you're anxious to go, you should go. And if I can help you, I want to do that. Because there is someone else in the company that's looking at your job and says, I can do what Owen's doing. In fact, I can do it better than Owen. And as soon as he get the job, he's going to tell me all the things you weren't doing right. So I understand those kinds of things. We can't hold anyone back. Nobody ever held me back, and I would not do it to anyone else.
So that probably ties into a question I have for you, and that's, what do you think is important to be a great leader?
Number one is don't overrate your own value. Okay? I know what I don't know, and I know how to go get people that know it.
Be replaced on Monday.
Yeah. So I don't overestimate my own value. The second thing is people are people, and you got to give them a vision. You got to give them information so that they can process whether that vision or not is working. And the other one is that they've got to feel like they're family, that they can come to you and say whatever they got on their mind, and there's not going to be any repercussions from doing that.
That is so important.
If you do those things here, the rest to come.
So what are your biggest challenges as a CEO?
My biggest challenge at this time is just constantly finding the right people for succession planning. I've got a good team. They're gonna sell trucks. I got one young man that worked for me he'd sell you a truck without a motor in it. You'd go somewhere else and get the motor. So I'm not worried about the sales team. My other thing that worries me the most is that I've told you before how the business model keep changing. The business model in the truck business is going to have a major change, I would say, in the next 10 years. And what I mean is today we sell trucks with diesel engines in them, hundreds and hundreds of parts in a diesel engine. As soon as it evolved to a battery truck, we got a battery, right? The bulk of our high-margin business is in the parts and service business. So now we're not going to have that business. So I have to spend time looking around the corner and saying, what is it we're going to do? I told you that today they've got 100 individuals that own international dealers across the country. I see a day, let's take right here in Florida, that there'll only be one dealer. And there's a good chance it won't be any one of the three of us. Some private equity company will come in and says, we want to buy up all of Florida. I said, I don't want to sell the business, but I can't tell you what my family's going to do when I'm not around. And it might be the best thing for them to do is sell it as long as they take that investment and go out and buy another business themselves. So those are the things I think about. The new business model for the dealership business. And the second thing is the second generation here for my family. What is that new dealership is going to look like, and talent.
So with the prospect of maybe that parts and service business going away, I mean, are you trying to diversify? Are you looking at other revenue streams?
Yeah. We in our business model to get us to where we want to be by 2027, we will do one or two acquisitions. Okay. And we think we got a pretty solid plan. We got our eye on what we're talking about. But until we can come to agreement on the fact I'm not going to buy just because you got it to sell, we're not going to get there yet. So.
Right.
But we'll figure it out.
What is interesting too is so artificial intelligence and AI and driverless cars. So we all had heard the fears and the prospects of having driverless trucks, on the streets, and that was coming, and all these truckers are going to lose their jobs. And as it turns out, as AI is evolving, it seems like it's probably more likely that it's the white collar workers and a lot of the software and programming that seems to be at risk. But in terms of driverless trucks, I mean, do you see that happening anytime soon in the next 5-10 years?
Well, it's alive and well. Okay, I've witnessed it go into a terminal, back up, hook up to a trailer, come out of that terminal, go to a terminal 50 miles down the road, back that trailer in, drop it off, get another trailer, and bring it back home.
So it's here. It's working.
Here.
Okay.
Here's the first hurdle, though. There's no one in this room that want to see an 80,000-pound vehicle go flying by them on I-75 and nobody in it.
That's scary, right?
Yeah. So we got to get over that, the first thing. Yeah. That's going to be down the road, though. It's not going to happen in my lifetime to any great degree, but it is alive and well, and it works. Now, people worry about safety. The best thing could happen is that all of the trucks on the road be driverless.
Yeah.
Then they feed off of each other, and you wouldn't need drivers, and you wouldn't have any accidents.
At some point in the time, the insurance companies are going to look at it and say, okay, these driverless cars, they're more efficient. They don't have the errors. You can't drive your own cars. I mean, to me, it would seem like in that scenario you're describing, if you've got all these trucks on the road,
Sure.
they are communicating with one another. They cut down on accident rates. You don't have to worry about the human element and them taking a break and taking a smoke and driving so many hours and needing to go to sleep. It seems like a natural evolution that'll take place at some point.
Yeah. You sound like you could speak at one of these driverless conferences. Huh? That's exactly right.
I've given it some thought because I enjoy driving. I want to be able to continue to drive. And at what point in time does the insurance company say, like, you can't drive anymore?
Yeah. Well, the car you got now, though, I would bet you that going down 75, you can set it and take your hands off the steering wheel, and it'll stay within the lanes. And slow down behind one and going. So it's a version of that.
I feel like we're close, at least in terms on the interstate. When we get into the city, it seems to be a little more complicated.
Right. Yeah.
You do a lot of work in the community, and you're very philanthropic. You give back. What's your approach there? What are you involved with?
Well, I almost think there's a bit of an obligation to do it because the communities help make us, and we help make the community. I try to find things that I'm interested in. I don't just do it just to be cute, and I try to find things that I can learn from. I've sat on a few boards, and I thought, man, why would I want to be on that board? Because I don't know anything about what they're doing. But at the board level, most every organization, whether it's a profit or not-for-profit, is operating at the same level. We got to sell stuff for more than we paid for it.
Right.
That's simple. I don't care whether it's the hospital or whether it's the university or wherever. At this top level, it's a business. And I learned so much from that. And then I've got a few organizations that I am involved in that I feel I'm obligated to show those kids that you too can do it. Nobody would have betted on me running a truck dealership when I was growing up. Well, I didn't know they existed.
So what organizations? What do you give them a shout out?
Certainly Academy Prep.
Yeah.
Okay. Academy Prep. Yeah. And for any of you that don't know Academy Prep, we take in kids in the 5th grade. Reading level have been compromised. We see them all the way through the 8th grade. Some of those kids, when they get out of the 8th grade, they could sit right here and have this podcast with you. And then we see them all the way through college. And now they're doctors and they're lawyers. When I first went to Academy Prep with a friend of mine, the day I walked on that campus, I knew that was me as a kid. I didn't have anyone to put their arms around me like we do at Academy Prep and say, be disciplined. We go to school, though, there 11 months a year, 11 hours a day, 6 days a week. And that didn't happen when I was growing up. But I know the value of that education piece and stuff like that. And that's the second North Star for me is having more than a one-generation business, and making sure that there's some people coming up behind me that say, I know a guy that pulled it off, and I can too.
Well, you're definitely doing that.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to add, Oscar?
No, I really appreciate this opportunity, though. When you called me, I said, oh, man, I don't know. But thank you. Okay.
No, thank you. I
Yeah.
mean, it was a treat for me, and I mean, you are really a pillar of the community, and I know you're very humble. I don't necessarily like the attention on you, but I mean, I can tell you, and your peers can tell you from being voted one of the most admired CEOs in the area, that we're delighted to have you in our community, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, guys. Yep.
If you got a question or future show idea or would like to be a sponsor, you can send us a message at moneymarket@bankoftampa.com or find us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and on Instagram at Bank of Tampa and online at bankoftampa.com. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you around in the money market.